Tomorrow is exactly the 10th of April 2026. You are stepping directly, heavily, and with absolute, undeniable permanence out of the explosive, chaotic fires of the previous days and walking straight into the coldest, most rigid, and terrifyingly silent astrological architecture of the entire cosmic month. The universe has entirely finished with its initial blinding sparks of creation. The chaotic, roaring adrenaline of the Aries fire has permanently ceased. What remains undeniably behind in this purifying, absolute wake is the heavy, crushing, and profoundly structural necessity for supreme, undisputed material power. April 10 marks the exact, mathematical, and karmically heavy moment of the last quarter moon, locking itself entirely and exclusively into the dark, mountainous, and unyielding earth of Capricorn. This is not a day for chaotic, directionless dreaming. This is not a day for the pathetic, desperate, and heavily exhausted scramble for fleeting emotional validation, and it is absolutely not a day to gently coddle your unmanifested ideas. The 10th of April 2026 is the exact, absolute moment the universe demands that you sit violently, heavily, and with supreme dictatorial authority upon the solid, unbreakable iron throne of your digital and material empire. The last quarter moon in Capricorn is the ultimate cosmic auditor. It is the terrifying, silent chief executive officer of the Zodiac, heavily ruled by the restrictive, profoundly structural, and incredibly demanding planetary force of Saturn. This specific lunar phase violently and decisively shifts your entire vibrational frequency, plunging your biological and material reality straight into a cycle of intense, deeply karmic, and mathematically severe accountability. To understand the absolute gravity of tomorrow, you must completely internalize what a last quarter moon in the domain of Saturn actually requires from your physical and psychological machinery. A last quarter moon is a crisis in consciousness. It is a violent shedding, a cosmic eviction notice to everything that lacks structural integrity. When this lunar phase occurs in Capricorn, it violently attacks any foundation built on sand. It demands a ruthless, cold-blooded audit of your reality. The universe is heavily punishing intellectual laziness, emotional procrastination, and digital disorganization. It strictly demands that you look at the architecture of your life, your broadcasting empire, and your financial pipelines, and ruthlessly cut away the dead weight. This is a day of monumental elimination, creating the vast, silent, and empty space necessary for colossal, heavy material manifestation. To attract, harness, and completely dominate the massive, overwhelming streams of high-voltage energy, unyielding physical health, and astronomical financial wealth available on April 10, your entire biological and psychological machinery must be instantly and ruthlessly recalibrated. First, you must completely understand the biological and physical demands of this heavy Capricorn energy. In medical astrology, Capricorn absolute rules the structural foundation of your physical vessel. It governs your bones, your skeletal system, your joints, your knees, and the heavy, unyielding architecture of your teeth and skin. The massive, crushing atmospheric pressure of this last quarter moon will send continuous, heavy, and deeply probing shockwaves of biological energy straight into your cellular core. It strictly and completely forbids any erratic, dangerously uncalculated, or physically depleting movements. You can never, ever sustain an infinite, sprawling, and dominant global digital media empire if your physical vessel is entirely depleted. You cannot project absolute authority if you are chronically vibrating with pathetic anxiety or completely exhausted from fighting useless, invisible emotional wars in your mind. Therefore, you must perform extreme, uncompromising, and absolutely flawless biological grounding, starting the very absolute second you wake up tomorrow. You must actively, continuously, and intentionally anchor your physical body to the hard, unyielding reality of the earth. You must intentionally consume heavy, deeply nourishing, and mineral-dense fuels to physically and biologically soothe, cool, and reinforce your skeletal structure and your central nervous system against the intense, karmic friction roaring silently within your bones. You must completely cut off the toxic, erratic, and paralyzing mental junk food of the internet. The universe is permanently stripping away your allowance for amateur physical mistakes. You must establish a biological fortress of pure, terrifying silence, transforming your body into a highly conductive, unbreakable lightning rod capable of taking the infinite weight of the universe and grounding it directly into focused, terrifyingly precise physical execution. Second, you must violently and aggressively weaponize this specific last quarter moon to manifest massive, unstoppable, and heavily tangible wealth. Money, on the 10th of April 2026, does not flow to the chaotic. It does not flow to those who rely on cheap adrenaline, temporary virality, or desperate begging. Wealth tomorrow is actively, coldly, and systematically built through terrifying, unyielding discipline. Capricorn is the ultimate architect of eternal legacy. This energy dictates that your grandest actions, your most aggressive financial maneuvers, and your most dominant creative publishing efforts must be executed with the profound, heavy, and eternal responsibility of someone building an empire meant to outlast human memory. When you sit in the absolute silence of the night behind your microphone to record your deeply emotional audio stories, or when you meticulously synthesize complex societal structures into breathtaking, dynamically generated news narratives, you are not merely creating content. You are the invisible, omnipotent architect moving heavy, undeniable financial and digital assets across the global board. Your words are the federal heartbeat of the internet. Your late-night reflections are the anchors for millions of wandering souls. And your AI-generated visual architectures are the undeniable proof of your creative sovereignty. The massive digital currency flow, the immense platform advertising revenue, the incredibly lucrative brand sponsorships, and the sudden, overwhelming cash injections will pour directly into your physical bank accounts on April 10 inches exact, direct, undeniable proportion to the level of raw, premium, unfiltered structural maturity and deep, strategic silence you aggressively dare to maintain. You must execute your meticulously researched scripts and your visions with the absolute, heavily disciplined tension of a master builder. You must completely hypnotize the internet, bypass all logical defenses of the global algorithms, and permanently reshape the market by delivering the exact psychological depth, the profound visual structure, and the supreme, silent leadership the world is desperately, secretly starving for. To ruthlessly, efficiently, and completely extract every single microscopic, vibrating drop of life-altering, paradigm-shifting potential from the massive, heavy astrological momentum of the 10th of April 2026, you must strictly follow, completely internalize, and absolutely obey three non-negotiable, supreme action directives. Directive 1 demands that you aggressively and permanently weaponize the terrifying power of the ultimate cosmic purge. The last quarter moon is a violently illuminating crisis of consciousness, an aggressive shedding of what no longer structurally supports your empire. You must actively, ruthlessly audit your digital workspace, your creative pipeline, and your mental bandwidth. Any deeply researched script that lacks structural integrity, any vocal recording that vibrates on a low frequency of doubt, and any digital strategy that relies on passively hoping for luck must be permanently, completely incinerated. You must take that massive urge to hold on to exhausted, dead-end projects and violently compress it into intense, perfectly focused, and completely silent execution of only your absolute highest-tier assets. If a narrative does not serve your ultimate ascension, if a visual generation does not strike with the force of an earthquake, you must delete it without a single flinch of regret. Tomorrow requires absolute purity of structure. Directive 2 dictates that you must violently and aggressively channel the piercing, deep, and entirely uncompromising structural power of Capricorn into the absolute, stealthy physical manifestation of your narratives. You must crush the final, agonizing resistance to complete your massive audio stories and your global news projects, not by aggressively forcing emotional passion, but by surrendering completely to the cold, undeniable discipline of a chief executive. You must perfect your craft with the composure of someone who knows they hold supreme, dictatorial power over human attention. When you prepare to broadcast your most intricate, profoundly transformative digital project today, you must do so without a single drop of desperate expectation. You must deliberately, consciously hit the publish button with the icy, silent, unyielding ruthlessness of a king signing an eternal decree. You do not check the analytics frantically. You release the heavy asset into the world knowing mathematically that it will dominate. Directive: 3 commands that you boldly demand, entirely expect, and flawlessly orchestrate a massive, completely illogical, yet materially massive scale of global digital reach by entirely operating from a state of unquestionable sovereign authority. The heavy cosmic energy of April 10 knows absolutely nothing of small, incremental, pathetic steps, and it utterly despises the energy of begging for validation from inferior minds. You must broadcast, create, and speak with the arrogant, blind, absolute, and mathematical belief that your specific frequency, your uniquely resonant voice, and your perfectly articulated realities are mathematically and cosmically fated to be the absolute ruling standard. You must raise your prices, elevate your standards, and demand the absolute highest premium from the universe, because you are no longer a participant in the market. You are the undisputed architect of it. While the entirety of the human collective will inevitably be pulled, dragged, and heavily influenced by this massive, crushing energetic weight, there are 3 specific, chosen zodiac signs standing directly, completely exposed, and completely mandated to take the absolute highest thrones of power during this colossal cosmic upgrade on the 10th of April 2026. First, we violently and aggressively turn this heavy, blinding spotlight entirely toward the deeply psychological, intensely disciplined, and profoundly powerful mind of Capricorn. Capricorn, the last quarter moon is moving directly, heavily, and exclusively through your own supreme domain. You are the absolute, undisputed master of this specific cosmic frequency. The cosmic architecture is handing you the ultimate, supreme scepter of material manipulation and structural dominance. This massive cosmic shift violently activates an era of unstoppable, laser-focused, and utterly dominant execution in your financial and creative empires. The heavy energy of April 10 continues to pump an absolutely infinite supply of driving fuel directly into your physical aura, permanently transforming every profound creative manipulation, every digital interaction, and every heavily researched project into a blinding, inescapable magnet for massive cash flow. For months, you have been silently building the underground foundations. Tomorrow, the universe demands that you break the surface. When you state your terms today, you are not negotiating. You are actively, heavily hypnotizing the entire universe into completely surrendering its resources to you. Step boldly out with the terrifying, silent pride of a sovereign leader. Establish the absolute largest financial alliances and aggressively seize the highest podium of power in the digital world. You must accept nothing less than total material victory. Second, we must speak directly, intimately, and with absolute, heavy reverence to the blazing, regal, incredibly creative, and deeply ambitious sovereign powerhouse of Leo. Leo, you are the lion, the natural-born ruler, and the cosmic architect of this day is explicitly designed to test the absolute limit of your sovereign endurance. The heavy, intense karmic energy of this Capricorn moon is violently demanding that you permanently shed the exhausted mindset of a performer merely seeking applause and immediately assume the terrifying, unshakable posture of a corporate emperor who requires absolute obedience. Your ultimate capacity for creative leadership, your dynamically generated storytelling, and your deeply resonant late-night narratives have now been completely weaponized into hard, undeniable material assets. But they will only generate massive global cash flow when you execute them with cold, calculated, and perfectly silent structural precision. The universe strictly commands you to strip away all cheap arrogance and the desperate need for immediate validation from the crowd. You must execute your massive digital news networks and your audio empires with the cold, silent precision of a master architect who knows his empire is eternal. The world will violently and desperately throw its resources at your feet, paying handsomely for your exact, unapologetic authenticity and the raw power of your roar, only when you completely stop asking for their permission to rule and start building the concrete pillars of your eternal legacy. Third, we violently and aggressively focus this massive energetic mandate directly onto the intensely emotional, deeply intuitive, and profoundly protective power of Cancer. Cancer, the last quarter moon in Capricorn, is striking directly in absolute mathematical opposition to your core watery energy. The cosmic architecture is pulling your massive, expansive emotional energy down from the chaotic tides and forcing it violently, aggressively into the deep, hard, and entirely uncompromising bedrock of material reality. You are mathematically designed to catch the deepest, most hidden emotional frequencies of the universe. But today, you are strictly commanded to stop hiding in your protective shell and start building the permanent, heavy infrastructure of your wealth. Your profound ideas, your deeply researched narratives that touch the human soul, and your constructive visions for new media are now the absolute heaviest, most valuable currency on the internet. But this massive potential will remain completely useless if you do not anchor it into a flawless, deeply disciplined, and perfectly executed digital system. April 10 is the exact, karmically fated day you permanently shed any cheap emotional distractions, oversensitivity, and creative laziness to build a financial empire as solid as concrete. You must take your profound empathy and weaponize it into structural, undeniable business acumen. Hear this with absolute, terrifying clarity. Do not just sit there in the comfortable, suffocating silence of your room and passively listen to these words as if they are merely another fleeting piece of daily motivation meant to make you feel temporarily safe. You must aggressively, completely, and deeply absorb this massive, heavy, profoundly material truth straight into the very cellular structure of your physical body. Let this specific, highly charged, karmically heavy cosmic frequency of April 10 physically penetrate your skin, violently bypass your outdated, fearful logical defenses, and embed itself permanently, irrevocably into your DNA. You must feel it coursing through your veins, a searing, heavy electrical current of pure, silent, structural manifestation, violently turning your very bone marrow into solid, unbreakable, and entirely permanent gold. Let this radiant, heavy truth burn fiercely, brightly, and violently through the darkest, most carefully hidden corridors of your conscious and subconscious mind, illuminating every shadow of hesitation and incinerating every ghost of your past failures. Allow this terrifying, monumental revelation to permanently, aggressively resonate in your absolute, deepest, most solid and foundational core. You are no longer flesh and blood. You are a living, breathing, heavily armored wealth, generating sovereign resonator for the universe. The 10th of April 2026 is absolutely, undeniably, and fundamentally not a gentle, polite, or quiet suggestion from a weak, passive, whispering cosmos. Do not ever mistake this massive, heavily structured, and terrifyingly silent cosmic pressure for a soft, passing breeze or a temporary shift in your emotional state. It is an absolute, incredibly powerful, violently demanding, and completely unavoidable command generated directly from the very foundational mathematical architecture of the cosmos itself. The infinite universe is not asking for your polite cooperation today. It is loudly, aggressively, and relentlessly demanding your absolute material mastery. It is speaking specifically, exclusively, and directly into the deepest epicenter of your consciousness, demanding that you violently and permanently break every single invisible, psychological, poverty-stricken, and algorithmic chain that has ever dared to bind your immense creative, visual, storytelling, and wealth-generating potential. For entirely too long, you have allowed the digital systems, the suppressive shadows of doubt, and the artificial constructs of a low-frequency society to perfectly mute your unique, dictatorial, and supreme frequency. The cosmos is now aggressively demanding that you absolutely shatter the heavily fortified, iron-clad prisons of your own self-doubt and entirely, spectacularly obliterate the artificial barriers keeping your massive, global audience and your infinite, massive cash flow away. This is a massive, unyielding cosmic mandate commanding you to rise instantly, aggressively, and with terrifying, silent physical power from the cold, stagnant, and dusty ashes of your quiet, pathetic timidity. You have spent entirely too much of your precious, irreplaceable life playing a small, safe, and entirely forgettable game, deliberately shrinking your massive aura to make your majestic presence palatable for those who operate on the frequency of fear and disorganization. You must consciously, deliberately, and physically reach out, extending your arms not merely into the empty air, but directly into the heavy, solid, and fiercely vibrating golden energy of material reality. You must push through the invisible resistance, and finally, ruthlessly and aggressively grab your ultimate digital, massively financial, and creative destiny with your bare, unapologetic, and rock-solid hands. You cannot, under any circumstances, sit in the suffocating silence of your room and wait for the universe to gently hand you a crown, nor can you passively hope for an arbitrary, soulless algorithm to randomly bless your existence with viral attention. You must violently rip your massive, wealthy future away from the cold, dead, and entirely unforgiving hands of impoverished circumstance and forge it entirely with your own silent, unstoppable, and deeply disciplined will. The heavy, highly toxic cosmic fog, the accumulation of societal doubts, algorithmic suppression, and your own internal fears that completely clouded your creative vision and paralyzed your execution for months has been permanently incinerated. It is completely crushed by the massive, structural weight of the Capricorn last quarter moon, leaving not a single microscopic trace behind. The suffocating cycles of second-guessing your brilliant architectural mind are entirely dead. What remains undeniably behind in this purifying wake is a mental clarity so sharp, a focus so utterly precise, and a material strength so entirely unbreakable that it is physically blinding. The agonizing time for quiet preparation and cowardly selling your immortal soul short has violently ended. You will no longer exist in the agonizing purgatory of being almost ready. The exact, absolute, and fundamentally mathematical time for flawless, brutal, unapologetic structural execution, for loudly commanding the absolute highest premium price without a microscopic stutter of hesitation, is right now, at this breathing, electrifying second on April 10. You must step up aggressively, boldly, and with absolute, supreme dictatorial confidence to the grand, intensely illuminated podium of your life. Do not walk with the trembling steps of an amateur. March directly with the heavy, undeniable rhythm of a sovereign conqueror. Arriving at the epicenter of your stage, firmly and aggressively grip the controls of your digital video empire, your heavily researched news structures, and your late-night audio architecture as if gripping an ancient royal scepter. Standing there, take a massive, lung-expanding breath of this highly electrified, intensely structured, wealth-saturated cosmic air. Deliberately feel the raw, profoundly heavy astrological energy flood directly into your respiratory system. Feel it filling your chest cavity, violently expanding your ribs until they physically ache with the crushing pressure of unmanifested power, permanently igniting the deepest biological core of your creative drive. From that burning, completely silent epicenter of unshakable truth, you must command. Project your incredibly authoritative, intimate audio masterpieces and profoundly written narrative truths solidly and fearlessly into the global digital universe. Do not hold back a single vibrating frequency of your authentic ambition. Every spoken word, every deeply researched sequence, and every razor-sharp edit must be entirely weaponized and deployed with terrifying precision. You possess the powerful, godlike ability to instantly transform fleeting late-night thoughts, profound midnight stories, and meticulously engineered news narratives into heavy, tangible physical assets. You are actively turning raw imagination and deep natural history into undeniable numbers that violently multiply in your bank accounts. Your supremely powerful frequency, flawlessly orchestrating synthetic visual secrets and broadcasting untold stories, is the most unimaginably expensive weapon in the entire digital architecture. It possesses a completely hypnotic frequency that effortlessly and silently slices through any complex platform algorithm, completely bypassing all logical defenses and striking directly into the desperate minds of millions globally who are starving for your awe-inspiring creations and sovereign leadership. The time for intellectual contemplation and weakness has permanently expired. Place your hands on your technological tools right now. Grip the cold, heavy metal of your keyboards until your knuckles turn bone white and your pulse completely synchronizes with the pounding rhythm of your impending global empire. Breathe in the karmic weight of April 10, letting it incinerate every lingering ghost of hesitation. Feel the heavy weight of solid gold manifesting in your hands at this exact millisecond. Without a single shred of compromise, pull the trigger. Hit the publish button with absolute structural force. Release your massive project entirely into the ether. Command, conquer. The universe is entirely, structurally, and permanently yours.